the way this is going to work is Abby's going to talk, and if you have any questions during her speaking, you can type them into the chat, but we won't look at them until the end, and then we'll go through and answer questions. And at the end, when it's time for those questions, if you would like to speak them out loud, just make sure you go to the participants tab that's at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and it should open up a window where you have little icons, and one of them should be to raise your hand, and that'll just give all of the hosts a notification that you have a question. And that's how we'll do that. If people can't find that, let me know. Otherwise, I think that's it.
And I will attempt to share my screen, so.
Right.
All right, can everybody see the PowerPoint? Awesome. Okay, so I think Dr. Amber wanted to make a few quick announcements before I started talking about the bylaws. So
yeah, just welcome to the General Assembly, and I wanted to remind everyone that today is College Naming Day. So Abby, you can advance the slide to the next one, where you were. On April 15th, 2015, the Dorothy and Bill Cohen Honors College naming was announced by a press conference, and that was just about a year after the college was formed out of the Emory Linguist Honors Program. Often for the General Assembly, we put up a slide with the founding college charter, and we remind all students, just as we do during the induction, that the founding charter, faculty, students, and staff charged us to uphold the 4 pillars and to form an innovative, intellectual, professional, and transformative community. So today I brought that to you in short form. It's also due to those students who drafted the charter and the original bylaws that we are mandated to hold a General Assembly each year. So this General Assembly is the first one that we have held in a virtual format. And the primary topic for this General Assembly is brought by the Student Council, and that is proposed changes to the college bylaws. We also brought forward to you just a few announcements and reminders. So Abby, if you want to advance to the next slide. I don't know if anyone is here from WHEAT who wants to speak to the Night with the Colleges. I didn't see Tabitha.
I don't think anybody is on.
Pop
no.
in. Okay.
Yeah, I'm from WHEAT.
Oh.
Yeah, go right ahead, Emma. Yeah, so there are a few announcements there from WHEAT and some other dates of applications and things like that for reminders. So I'm going to turn it over to Emma to just tell us a little bit about those WHEAT events coming up.
Yeah, so this Saturday we are having our Night with the Colleges, where students and faculty have a chance to connect and just kind of get to know each other a little bit. We'll have a speaker who will talk about leadership, and I'm really excited for it. And then we also have our next virtual honors hangout planned for May 6th. And what we do there is we have some online board games, and then we also have a movie that we play. And that's what I have for WHEAT.
Awesome. If people want to find out about WHEAT events, where do they go?
Right now you can go to our website on the Wichita page, or you can go to our Facebook. It's at Wichita Honors. And then we also recently started an Instagram. It's at WHEAT_WSU.
Okay.
Thank you.
Abby, did you have a question there?
No, I don't think so. Sorry if you can, the maintenance decided to mow just now, so it's not working very well. But yeah, so just ignore the mower.
Okay. We have heavy wind in Indiana, so yeah, I would have the mower would be better. So the other thing that I wanted to highlight is that graduating seniors will be receiving emails with a link to a survey that we asked you to fill out as you're graduating, as well as an opportunity to tell us about your accomplishments in your future plans. We are going to recognize you, and we do know that several faculty and students have won awards this year, including our Outstanding Cohen Honors Student Award. So we will be recognizing those awards. Jesse and Aaron Leveg in our office has some plans for that recognition. So don't miss the opportunity, particularly seniors, to tell us about your accomplishments over the years that you've been here, and tell us about where you're going next. And then finally, we're starting to look ahead to fall 2020. And a student committee is forming, led by first-year student Tyler Stites, to talk about creating a student orientation session on the same day as induction, which is planned for August 15th this upcoming fall. So, Abby, that's all from me, from the Dean update. So I'll hand it over to you as our council chair.
Alrighty, so, sorry, basically, we have been going through the bylaws. The Honors College Student Council has been for the past month or so, and we've just decided to make a couple changes. So first, these changes were brought about by our suggestion to change the admissions requirements into the college. And so for that, we have decided to remove the GPA and ACT or SAT requirement from the bylaws, which it wasn't really there anyway, which we found out later on. But basically to change the culture of the college into really showing that meaningful work isn't about just your GPA, just numbers. It's about what you can do. And we also have seen that this could be an opportunity for underprivileged students who may not have had a high GPA or ACT in the past to feel comfortable applying and putting themselves out there to do more meaningful work. We also wanted to make language inclusive, so instead of using his or her pronouns, we've switched they, them pronouns. And in the past few years, we've created director positions for the student council, which were not necessarily in the bylaws. And so we've kind of, I guess, shifted to make sure that what the student council is doing is reflected in the bylaws, as well as we're doing what we can to actually serve the students. So with that, I will get into more specifics of what exactly was changed. So in our bylaws section 3A.1, student membership. So the current actually requirement is the admission to the Honors College will be competitive based on ACT or SAT scores, high school, college, or college GPA and application. And so our proposed language would be that admissions to the Honors College will be competitive based on a holistic application outlined in the admissions committee constitution, and that any change to the constitution must be approved by the University Honors Council to ensure the process is inclusive and accomplishes the aims of the Honors College. So the admissions committee constitution is not actually created yet. That is something that we are wanting to do, but we want a lot of different inputs from faculty and staff and not just students, because this really isn't our area of expertise. So basically we might have different requirements like letters of recommendation or I don't know, volunteer hours, just different things that show how you did more meaningful work before coming to college or before coming to WSU. And so, yeah, we're not quite sure what that will entail quite yet, but that will be outlined. And we just want to make sure that this idea of valuing experiences over numbers is not lost in future years. And so that's why we added it must be approved by the University Honors Council, which is the Honors Student Council and Faculty Council together makes up the University Honors Council. And so then we have section 7.1, the Honors College Student Council composition. So the current was just kind of unclear. It looks a little bit like a ratio of 11 to 9 students, but that's not necessarily what it means. So on the right, it's just a little bit more clear and doesn't necessarily have number capacity. So our proposed is that the Honors College Student Council is comprised of student members representing constituent groups within the Honors College as outlined in the Constitution of the Honors College Student Council, the College Dean ex officio non-voting, and College Advisor ex officio non-voting. So it's pretty similar, just I guess broadens the capabilities of what the Student Council can look like. And this one is a little bit hard to read, so I apologize for that. But the selection, in the past, it has said that the dean will recommend different positions, or others can nominate students for positions, but that's not really how the Student Council has been doing selection even before I started in the council. It's basically been an application. So that is what is outlined on the right. And basically to make sure that the Student Council can continue in what we're doing, we have the bare minimum positions specifically on the right, which include the chair, vice chair, director of records, treasurer, director of marketing, director of diversity initiatives, and first year representative. There are other positions that we have, but because they weren't deemed necessarily essential, we have those just in the Constitution, but they're not necessarily required to keep the Student Council going. So that was kind of the rationale behind that. Oh, maybe. Okay. So meetings, again, we're just basically changing the bylaws to kind of reflect what we're doing now and be a little bit more flexible, so that hopefully future student councils won't have to come back and change this every other year or so. So in the past, it has been just it will meet separately or by the dean, just different things like that. And now we just have any requirements are outlined in this Constitution. Again, just making it a little bit more flexible and not as rigid on what cannot and cannot be done. And so those were really the big changes that we made. Yeah, so I will stop sharing the screen unless you guys need it. And yeah, does anybody have any questions? Okay, and I will go ahead and share the link to vote because we're not in an in-person General Assembly. We did have to have voting outside, and that way other students that may not have been able to attend based on work or other classes and the like will still be able to vote and voice their opinions. And this Zoom meeting will also be put online, so if anybody wants to watch it and watch me explain things in a very lengthy manner, they can. So yeah, the Qualtrics form to vote is in the group chat, and I just want to double check that there are no more questions.
So Abby, following the specific discussion, it's a tradition to open it up for general, anybody who wants to raise a question or a concern. And typically you as the council chair would facilitate that, and any one of us can answer the question. So if no one has, not to close off any questions about this particular, but people also can open it out to other questions or concerns or ideas they want to raise.
Got a quiet bunch.
I do have a question for the group, and this is maybe more for the students. The discussion about not just technically changing the bylaws, but the broader discussion about admission has been going on in the council now for some time, and then in dialogue with the faculty council, also in dialogue with our alumni board. So this has been an extended discussion. And I'm just curious how much the students, other students who don't sit on the council proper, have been aware of that conversation about admissions into honors and questions about changing the way that we approach admissions.
I think the only thing that I've heard about it was the discussion on the whiteboard in the Honors College. That was a while back, where people were writing out their feelings about it and voting on a few things. But I think that's the only like real discussion I've heard about it.
And Ella, do you think there's a need for broader discussion at this point?
I mean, I think it's important that we are always revisiting our criteria as times change. And I think this year in particular, it will be important for us to focus less on numbers and grades and more on the experience that students are getting, just because the students that will be applying, a lot of them will be first-year freshmen who are coming out of what ended up a very difficult senior year for them. But I do think generally it's important, and I like the focus shifting more towards students who are motivated about something and who are passionate about something than students who just scored really well on paper. But that's just me personally.
Mm-hmm.
I was curious too, because the faculty council unanimously supported the bylaw changes. But one of our, throughout those discussions, was the overall cultural change that might occur with these kinds of changes. And I was curious what the larger student body's consideration of that has been. And I guess I'm also curious, Abby, with the, I'm not really proficient on the next step, but like that Qualtrics voting thing, that's for the student body of the college, correct? Or,
Yes,
yeah.
correct. Yeah. So to approve bylaw changes, the student body has to go through a vote, and normally that would be done in an in-person General Assembly. But yeah, with the, I guess, conditions that we're in, this is what we chose to do, and hopefully we'll be able to actually involve more people than what may have just been able to attend an in-person General Assembly. So, hi, Dr. Brinstorff. Go ahead. Sorry.
Hi. I have one question about that process. Normally when you would be in a situation where you're there together physically, a motion is made and then there is a time of discussion where people can sort of almost have a little discussion, debate, whatever it needs to be on the floor. Will there be any way to have that kind of a process, or will it just be an up or down vote, or are you going to have some way that people can have comments about why they voted the way they did, for just some general feedback, to, no matter how the vote ends up, to have some feedback one way or the other, so that the council could be watching for both pros and cons that students might have about the way they voted. That would just be a comment on my part.
Yeah, so I guess the kind of discussion portion we were hoping would happen here, but we do have in the Qualtrics that I made, if they voted no, we have like a comments box to say why not. So,
Okay.
Guess, yeah. Lucas, I think you had a question.
Yeah. I joined just a few minutes late, so if you covered this, I apologize. But could you reiterate the timeline that we'll have to vote, and if there's like a minimum quorum or something, like percentage of the entire college that has to vote?
Yeah, so voting opened 24 minutes ago, and it will end on Friday, May 1st at, I believe, 11:59 p.m. So that will give us a little over 2 weeks. It will give us over 2 weeks. Sorry, I don't know what day it is. And I don't believe there's any sort of quorum in the bylaws. Hopefully we'll get a good turnout. So.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
there's no quorum specified, just that it has to be put before the body at the General Assembly and proposed in that way. And so it doesn't specify a quorum. I think kind of weirdly but wisely, it doesn't specify a quorum. But we like to be weird and wise. That's kind of, my goal. So in what Nathan Filbert was saying, there also was an embedded question, I think, which had to do with culture change. And the question, if I were going to rephrase it, might also be, what are some plans for additional culture change in the college? Or what are some ways in which we might think about culture change?
Are you asking me?
Kind of going through it right now. But yeah, sorry, Abby, go ahead.
Oh, were you asking me specifically or just opening it up? Okay.
Just generally, just throwing it out if anybody wanted to speak to that question that I think, or provocation maybe, that Nathan was putting out there. But it also can just maybe rest for people to think about the question that is the broader question that's implied by this more technical proposal that's coming out of the council, which is itself, I think, a kind of provocation to say, who are we as an honors college? What does that mean? And as Ella said, our charge to each other to keep revisiting that and to keep thinking about, at that moment of invitation and of admission, what is it that it means to us to be an honors student? So what the council is proposing is technical, but the work is cultural work that belongs to everyone. And that, again, I'm extrapolating from Nathan's question, but I think it is also part of the charge to say, how might each of you individually think about that work of continually building that culture, the culture that's inclusive, that's also competitive, that's always balancing those values.
Oh, go ahead, Nathan.
No, you go ahead, Lucas.
Okay. So I kind of touched on this a little bit at when we met with the faculty council. But yeah, one good point that was brought up was this requirements change isn't going to solve all of our like cultural or diversity or any issues like that. It will hopefully be a start, but an issue that was raised up by another student I know too is like taking away these minimum requirements. Are we going to let people in who we won't set them up for success? And I think that that's a good thing to consider as well. But I think that this is a good move if we consider it holistically. And I think with the cultural change, I would like to kind of partner with ODI to come up with some kind of diversity task plan. One that University of Oregon has on their website that I think is really good that I was trying to pull up. But I think that would be really beneficial to come up with some kind of detailed laid out plan with a lot of different things or initiatives that we want to implement. But I think that that's going to take a lot of meeting with a lot of different perspectives and over a certain amount of time.
Yeah, one of the things I've thought about that I was really pleased with at that meeting between the faculty council and you all when we first discussed this was the readiness, right, of an honors college in the past, I think often can have that feeling of specialness rather than uniqueness. And it seems like this sort of a change, is like I think, Abby, you're talking about the constitutional composition is another really key piece. Like each of these steps seem like very key pieces to me in the structuring. But then the filtering down of that into how it's lived out is a lot of important conscientious work, I think. And that's one of the things that, I feel like the culture will have to change from special to unique, sort of like we've been trying all this time to move from quantitative or measures to meaningfulness, which is another thing we've struggled for years together to try to define what that really means. But that value culture of creating a college and a group that share care and concern and motivation and desire are all difficult things to shape. And this feels like an important step to me, but it does feel like a structural step rather than an actuation. And it'll be curious to hopefully get a larger scope of the student body in relation to that. Are we behind maybe not being special, but providing unique opportunity?
Yeah, and oh, sorry, Ella, go ahead.
Go ahead. Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
I just want to add to it that I think it's also important that we try to transition away from just being always defined as smart. Like when people talk about the honors college, it's always, I'm not smart enough for that, or that's just the smart people. And I think while being smart is not necessarily a bad thing, I think the honors college represents a lot more than that. And so, like Nathan was saying, transitioning to unique, I think it's also important that we try to transition our culture from one of just that smart people to those are driven people, those are people with passion, and those are people that are doing things that are meaningful rather than just those are people with good grades.
And I think it's also important to point out that we are not the first honors college to be doing this, nor the first college. I believe the entire University of, Dr. Amber is screen sharing. Oh, here is the University of Oregon's Clark Honors College. So they do not have any GPA or ACT requirement to get into the college. And I believe the entire University of California system has gotten rid of their GPA or ACT requirement, as well as maybe the University of Indiana or something like that. Their honors college does not have a GPA or ACT requirement. So we are not the first to do this, but we would be the first in Kansas to do this, so.
I just sent a link in the chat to the diversity task plan that University of Oregon had. Has some kind of cool ideas, like setting up some discussions about seeing things through different perspectives, just a lot of different kind of tactics that they were trying to use.
And I think those things are great, but what I want to feel or find out is, as that trickles down, I still think maybe a lot of us hold inside of ourselves that there is a special smartness or intelligence to this belonging, and watching that or being open to that being a fuller experience, I think will be really interesting culturally as we shape this definition together, I guess.
All right, does anybody have any last questions or comments about this or anything else involving honors? Okay, I guess that's a no. I just would like to thank you all for being here. And if you are a student, please vote at that Qualtrics link in the chat. I'm sure it will also be in the weekly update if you lose the link for some reason. But yeah, I just, again, want to thank you all so much for being here and for participating. And I hope you're all doing well and staying safe. Dr. Ember, did you have anything else?
Thank you. Yeah, Nathan, go ahead.
I had a question about how we're going to push that out to the student body. How many different ways can we get that to them? What's the plan?
Yeah, so the weekly update, this entire talk will be hopefully on the website if that is able to happen. And also probably we'll share the link on social media and different things like that, just kind of cover all of our bases. So
And you guys talked about pushing it out through the student groups so that
yeah,
if you're leaders of a group me in the student group, that you prompt your student group that way, or
yeah.
other. So when you say social media, that covers also all of those platforms that Emma talked about for WEAP and so forth. So really working that network. They talked about, the kind of tree, making that sort of, communication tree out through the different groups as well.
Will we also have direct email to the students? Like,
Do you have a listserv?
I do not.
So the weekly update goes out on the listserv.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what goes out on the listserv. And we can either manage that. I mean, basically that's an email. We also occasionally email the students and the faculty separately, but primarily we use that as the listserv. That way you guys can see it as well.
Do you think it would also be important to put it on the Shocker Blast with a little visual? Because I think if students are watching, if they look at that, that might be a different way to hit them.
I don't know. I don't know how much they look at it. I do, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I just know that, Shocker Blast doesn't, I'm not sure how often it goes out, but or maybe it's not going out at all right now.
It is.
Is it? I just know that sometimes those have little pictures that sort of it'll catch their attention as
So
they're
with
looking through
the
it.
new website and the change of all of that, it's no longer, there are no longer pictures until you click on another link. So it's just headlines, which is not super helpful when you want to get things out. But it is an option for us. Yeah.
Is it okay that any student votes on this? Because if we would send it out on like Shocker Blast or social media, it would really open it up for anybody to vote on it, even outside of an honors student.
So I did go ahead and make a question on the Qualtrics. Are you an active honor student in good standing with the college? And they would check yes or no on that. So then we would get data from both honors and non-honors students. So
okay, great, thank you.
Why the question about in good standing? Do they need to be in good standing to vote?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Did you mean specifically in good standing from an academic perspective, or did you just mean in a more, are you a member of the honors college?
Yeah. Are you a member of the honors college? More. Yeah.
Okay.
Out. Because we do have students who are technically not on good standing academically, but are active and passionate and will shortly be in good standing. And I think that their voices are important. I just wouldn't want somebody to see that and get confused about who should vote. Like, oh, I'm not qualified to vote.
I can definitely change that. So
just, are you an honor student, I think is sufficient.
And I was really thinking that maybe this kind of a vote merits its own email that, separated from the list of things you might be looking at, but this might be worthy of its own separate.
The special
Yeah.
edition, sometimes we call
Right,
that a special edition.
right.
So what we might do is, as it gets closer to the deadline, send out that targeted email. So kind of put it out in various places and then send out that targeted email as a final prompt as it's closer to the deadline. I like the fact that there's a box for the no. I'm also curious about why people said yes. I don't know if that's what Dr. Bernsdorf was suggesting as well. Abby, I don't know if you would be open to, I mean, it's optional. They wouldn't have to put a reason, but if they wanted to, that would be interesting qualitative data as well.
Okay.
So I was just going to thank you, Abby, for your leadership and your counsel. I know you've had a lot of active members. I know Lucas brought forward questions about scholarship selection. This, like back in the days when we were in the basement of Hubbard Hall, which feels like ancient history now. And that many of the council members have been actively working on this, making presentations about this, having really difficult conversations. And it's the conversational part that's part of the culture change. So I'm really, really proud of you, and also feeling really grateful to be among this group of students, and of course not just the council, but this community. So I just wanted to end by thanking you.
All right. Thank you guys very much again.
Nice, that was good.
Yeah. If you want to watch this again for any reason, hopefully it will be online later this week. So, all right, it was good to see you all, and wash your hands and stay safe.